DPS are getting more variability in Season 7, with more hero options being viable, and even some of the worst in the damage category are able to be played even at the highest level. And good compositions in your ranked games are usually most reliant on their DPS synergy to really beat out anyone else. Supports and tanks are important too, but will definitely still lose if the other DPS are in good enough sync. Let's get into the 5 best DPS duos in Season 7 that cover each other's backs and have great synergy. Use the link in the description below to get access to a GameLeap membership, where you can find tons of guides to help you master both sides of these DPS duos. There's a wide variety of coaches and top players making courses for you to choose from, so check it out if you're interested. The first DPS duo we've got is a classic jack-of-all-trades combo, Sojourn and Genji. They're strong heroes on their own, with Sojourn still definitely being better, but they're nothing too crazy. But with their synergy, they have an insane amount of precise damage, as well as brawling capability and survival. It's really hard to catch either a Sojourn or a Genji, so with solid, consistent play, staying in the fight as often as you can, it's a top duo to deal a ton of precise damage on backline. Sojourn can charge a railgun up on the tank for sure, but it's to get a rail shot to fire at the supports or enemy damage heroes instead. Genji also has great burst damage and his deflect is super versatile, just as good as a kinetic grasp to stay alive, with massive damage potential if the focus is too high. Engaging someone already low HP as Genji is the reason he can be so strong, since his low damage burst is so fast. Just a dash in a melee, even without shurikens at all, is enough to kill a 200 HP target after they've been hit by a railgun shot. So if you're looking to actively synergize, it's the best combo to look for as much as you can. Both heroes have no problem waiting around to go in, basically waiting for the best opportunity to get the most out of their abilities, so you'll be on the same page with no doubt for most of the game. Even though Sojourn's overclock is still much better and is basically the ranged version of Genji's Dragon Blade, they both have great single target damage over a transform duration. They can't be cancelled. They can put a lot of pressure down and take space, forcing people to kite or use cooldowns almost every time. Combined with the other, they can both go super aggressive, since both of their neutrals and ultimate cycles are really dangerous. When one of them isn't focused, they can do a lot. Managing your uptime and attention with your duo is super important to start farming games, but it's definitely really easy when you get the hang of it. No comp really fully counters Sojourn Genji, but there are definitely a lot of ways to play to another duo's strengths way harder, but Sojourn Genji are perfect all-rounder heroes. Next up is the brawling, bulky, overpowered raw damage duo of Symmetra and Bastion. Both of them have a slow and steady playstyle with a crazy high damage potential, and the good thing for both of them is that even though they're most effective at close range, beaming and full tracking your targets with no spread, their long range damage is still respectable. Bastion in his recon form is way better than he's been before, and even Symmetra's secondary fire shots are crazy powerful, doing 100 flat damage that can literally 2-tap everyone. Both Sim and Bastion also have a high mechanical skill ceiling, so if you really want to grind the duo, it's definitely still challenging mechanically, since you still need precise aim and game sense to get the most value out of these heroes. They do depend on their team to keep them alive, having slow mobility at best, but their extra health is perfect to get maximum value out of a heal pocket. Symmetra can even play solo, so it's not a bigger strain on healers pocketing both of these high value, high damage heroes either. Don't feel bad running this comp, and in fact it's one of the best brawl DPS lines you can have, since at this point it's all about raw damage and bringing it close to the enemy, rather than trying to isolate a target with utility and focus them down in the new brawl comp. Sim's teleport is also perfect for repositioning Bastion to make a small but really effective play, with the most ideal utility in literally teleporting him around to catch people off guard. Sim's photon barrier also synergizes with everyone, but with a 4000 HP then a Bastion teleported into an ideal angle is already a great way to win the fight no matter what. Even though they're generally considered a slow duo, they can execute fights really fast thanks to some recent buffs and changes making their abilities ramp up much quicker. For the number 3 spot, we have a classic duo from before Overwatch 2. It's the insane super spam comp that still has some flexibility with Ashe Echo. Ashe Echo put out insane amounts of damage and also have great area of effect abilities, able to stuff chokes and punish players playing close to each other. This is really good to beat brawly comps and tanks that can isolate one angle of attack, and Dynamite is great to apply damage to rotating compositions. Echo can also look to wipe anyone out in a dive, which makes this combo way better than just a simple way to deal more damage spamming quarters and chokes. Maps like Route 66 with high skyboxes have the double effect of both giving cover to the Echo and space to fly, and set up sticky bomb and focusing beam engages, and also allowing for easy Ashe sightlines that are really hard to flank without knowing where it's coming from. They also have really fast ultimate charge rates, with Bob being one of the faster charging normally used ultimates, and Echo's duplicate being super fast to charge now as well. Best used aggressively and often rather than just for a second life. They're an ideal duo that can keep up with ult economy, deal a ton of damage, and stay alive for a long time too. They've got extra pressure on dive tanks and DPS too, with sticky bombs and focusing beam to deal crazy burst damage, and Dynamite to force defensive abilities from heroes like Tracer and Genji with their recall and deflect respectively. They're definitely not an underplayed duo, but with Sojourn and Bastion being so strong lately, they're usually the fresher new picks that are always being played, rather than the classic Ashe Echo combo that's been very strong for a very long time. Moving on to the number 2 spot, it's a bit of a double feature. If you and your duo, or even the player you're in with in matchmaking, is a hit scanner projectile main, you can fill in real easily with the 2 duos of Hanzo Genji for projectile and Soldier Tracer for hit scan. Any combination of these is great for covering both spam and dive, with Soldier and Hanzo each having a great way to focus and burst targets, or just focus the tank down with good damage and burst. On the other hand, Tracer and Genji are ideal for skirmishing on the side of the fight, before committing to going for a pick, but with both having a way to escape as well. These duos give a lot of presence all over the map and good duel potential as well, no matter what part of the fight you're in. Soldier Tracer or Soldier Genji are as effective as the type of duo Sojourn Genji is, with a lot of flexibility. But if you and your duo can play all of these heroes, there's an even wider variety of combos you can make, all based off of the long-range combo with the diver. Hanzo Genji, the Shimada duo, is also really strong, and with a lot of zoning in their ultimates and playstyles, they can cover each other's weaknesses and work together. Even the other way of combining the hero pool, playing Soldier with Hanzo or Genji with Tracer, aren't too bad, but they're definitely more prone to being countered by either one support or one tank that can effectively mitigate damage or peel a dive. You ideally don't want to play into a composition or characters that can deal with both your DPS at the same time, countering them both with one stone. Hanzo with Genji and Tracer or Soldier with Genji and Tracer are perfect to balance your composition out, and all combos have a great way to express your skill, positioning with your mobility, burst damage, and mechanics to get as many picks as you can. It's a very down-to-earth way to play Overwatch that's definitely an ideal game state, balance-wise, but to finish out the best duos, I've got to mention the biggest and baddest one that's still strong and oppressive. Bastion is back again, but not with Symmetra this time, but with Torbjorn, at the top for the best duo. They can hit the balance of different angles and raw, pure damage with being really tanky themselves. They're almost 2 more tanks to the roster to make a really cringe composition that's super hard to kill. Individually, their armor and extra health through either Bastion's base HP or Torb's overload make them 2 tough heroes to take down even just normally. Normally, this composition would be countered by heroes who can actually kill Torb's turret, preferably from the sky, but Pharah especially isn't even good into Bastion anymore, whose recon form is super accurate, enough to counter Pharah's equally vulnerable hitbox. And on top of that, Pharah herself is struggling mostly due to how strong supports are right now, able to pick her out without even playing a hitscan DPS in the first place. But luckily for Bastion, he is a hitscan DPS. Both of his forms have enough accurate damage and sustainability to take out a Pharah in any duel, even with a Mercy sometimes. And even though Torbjorn and Bastion have very single target based damage types, the Molten Core and Tactical Grenade offer options to stuff chokes with explosive abilities and area of effect damage that makes it hard to both contest the objective and to rotate to it in the first place. It's another example of a duo in the lore being good in the game as well, which is pretty crazy to think about. But despite the Torbjorn nerf, he's still a great source of damage in the front line, and his turret in the back helps avoid flankers from picking anyone off before or during the fight, which is especially good for keeping up the very strong supports right now. For Bastion, his raw damage output is enough to push forward with full brutal force, able to deal a crazy amount of 2,160 damage in those 6 seconds duration of the turret form. Sigma can barely sustain that amount of damage, and that's only if he has full shield and gets maximum overhealth from the grasp. Unless he hits a perfect rock, which can be avoided by playing good with a tank, he has to leave the corner. So Bastion himself can just fully force out a tank, and one of the better ones at that, no problem with just one ability use. Having that amount of damage ready to go and a pretty durable normal health pool between the cooldown times is still really underrated and very strong and ranked. Until the mid-season patch, this might still be the duo to go, since Sombra, despite having a fairly good rework compared to some other ones, hasn't changed much up for the rest of the DPS. Roadhog's rework will have to really switch things up, forcing a more pick-heavy meta rather than one where Bastion and Torb can chill in the back playing Engineer from TF2. Right now, it just happens that the game climate is perfect for these two to not only be viable, but literally thrive, with high sustain being common in almost every match, with new supports bringing heavy sustain and old buns being way too strong with some of the Overwatch 2 support changes. But that's it for now with the best duos of DPS for Season 7. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Use the link in the description below to get access to a GameLeap membership, where you can find tons of guides to help you master both sides of these DPS duos. There's a wide variety of coaches and top players making courses for you to choose from, so check it out if you're interested.